This is Sports Bettor Court with Dan Lust on Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome to the Sports Bettor Court. I am your judge, the Honorable Dan Lust. Not a judge in real life, just on our show, but a lawyer, obviously, in real life. But we do each and every week. We span the world of sports law to find the issues that you need to know about as only a lawyer can provide. And then obviously we're going to get into our gambling. We'll bring in the litigants. So story that I've been following for about 2 years, a story that's at the front page of the sports law world, is the Trevor Bauer story. Not the Trevor Bauer allegations. We have nothing new on that front, but we do have the receipts. This is the new part. So I think if people have seen by now, Trevor Bauer put a video out that was a kind of a produced video showing text messages allegedly sent by his accuser in this, we'll say, sexual assault case. I just want to tell you what's happening right now with Trevor Bauer, that statement that he put out. Very rare, almost unheard of, not just for athletes, but in the law. So your judge is going to give you a little bit of a background on what normally goes into a settlement and why this is so significant, what Trevor Bauer has done, and maybe sets the tone for defamation cases in the future. Trevor Bauer settles this case, right? So 2 years ago, we don't need to get into all the messy part, but I think most people know this. Trevor Bauer is accused of basically some form of sexual assault. Now, again, your judge likes to keep it a little clean, but for purpose of this, there's an allegation of some type of, we'll say, consensual, rough sexual act. Let's put it that way. Trevor Bauer says it was fully consensual. The accuser here says it was not fully consensual. Now, just so you know, as a judge here, a lawyer, I'm also a professor, just know we're not going to get into the messy part, but hypothetically, if someone were to be rendered unconscious, there's a legal gray area as to whether that person can render any consent to any activities that occurred between them. Now, we don't know all of the claims and allegations because we were not in the courtroom. This has really only been at one point in a courtroom, and that was when the accuser here went after Trevor Bauer for a temporary restraining order. That's the only time there was some type of adversarial hearing with, cross-examination and opening statements and speaking to a judge, all that stuff. Now, as a result of that case, the judge found that the accuser had testified in a, quote, materially misleading manner. And that's a judge that saw all of these text messages, that heard the testimony. We were not in the courtroom. We can't really render. We didn't see any of those text messages. But I will tell you, it's a little bit odd. The burden to get a temporary restraining order is very low. And for a judge to deny it, it's worth paying attention to. But we fast forward 2 years. Major League Baseball suspended Trevor Bauer for 2 years. Now, if you're wondering, is this the only accuser? There had been reports from the Washington Post that there were other, we'll call them similar allegations that Major League Baseball may have or may not have taken into account. But Major League Baseball suspends Trevor Bauer for 2 years. That's significantly longer than the offenses given to a guy like Stephen Wright, former knuckleballer with the Boston Red Sox, who had a domestic violence incident, or even, Aroldis Chapman, that once upon a time fired a gun in the vicinity of, I think, his girlfriend at the time. But some pretty serious acts, right? We're not going to say what's more serious than something else, but 2 years is the longest suspension ever given out under this particular policy. So you kind of take notice, okay, the courts are saying that these allegations here from this accuser are materially misleading and denying a temporary restraining order. And then Major League Baseball suspends Trevor Bauer for 2 years. Now, it doesn't matter how we got here. What matters is that Trevor Bauer has retroactively served his 1 year suspension, and he's not on a Major League Baseball team. He's playing his baseball. I think it's for the Yokohama Bayhawks, not playing domestically, put it that way. Had a solid year, but who knows if Trevor Bauer is ever going to play in Major League Baseball again, former Cy Young winner in 2020. And we bring this up, right? That's what's been happening over the last 2 years. Trevor Bauer has been outcast from Major League Baseball. In the process of all this, Trevor Bauer filed 3 defamation actions, filed 1 against this accuser and 2 against members of, let's say, media outlets, put it that way. Now, this is someone, and the reason you file a defamation action is if someone says something against you that's materially false, and you have to prove as a public figure that this person isn't just saying something that's materially false, they're knowingly lying about it. That's this concept of actual malice. So that's what Trevor Bauer is alleging. I guess we can only talk about here for the accuser, not with respect to the media members. But Trevor Bauer sued his accuser and essentially said, what you are saying, you're knowingly lying. You know what you're saying is false, but you're saying it anyway. So that case kicked around for probably a year and a half, right around then. This case is settled. Now, where we started this whole conversation, I said that the terms of that settlement are very odd. It might be precedential as we move forward in, high-profile defamation cases, athlete cases, potentially sexual assault cases, but more on that in a minute. Trevor Bauer settles, not a dollar paid, according to Trevor Bauer, out of his pocket. And now, that's the odd part. Normally, you'd pay a little bit of something. The other part, when you settle a case like this, or really any case I settle in my personal practice, 99.9% of the time, there's something called a non-disparagement agreement, a confidentiality agreement that basically says, hey, we're settling this case, and neither of us are going to talk about what happened. This is done. We're going to close the books. These secrets will be locked up in this case. No one will ever hear about it again. Trevor Bauer didn't just get keep his money and not pay her any money out of pocket. He got to send out all those texts. That's that 4-minute video you can find on Trevor Bauer's feed. And Trevor Bauer, and you can make your own assessments, but the first text that Trevor Bauer finds and puts out in this case says something, again, I'm paraphrasing here, but next victim, comma, a Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher. And that's allegedly a text message sent by the accuser in the case. So next victim, right, is being sent by the accuser, the one accusing Trevor Bauer of sexual assault. So then you think back to what that judge said once upon a time, that the accuser's comments were, quote, materially misleading. And then you have someone that is texting someone, next victim. Trevor Bauer is worth, and again, this is a text message allegedly sent by the accuser, $51 million. And then you start to say, maybe this wasn't what was initially painted out to be. Maybe we have to ask some more questions as to why Trevor Bauer was suspended 2 years by Major League Baseball. And maybe teams, the 30 Major League Baseball teams, have to reassess whether Trevor Bauer is a pariah, never to be touched again, or if there really was a weak case here to begin with. It has now been settled and was thrown out by the only court it ever touched over in California. So we talk about those questions, right? Innocent until proven guilty. And that's our concept for today, for Lust for Law. Now, for our show today, Trevor Bauer, we're not sure if he's going to play in baseball again, but this is a betting show. We have try to have some fun here, try to have some interesting conversations. The other case that we have never seen a defamation case for, maybe we never will, that's the Deshaun Watson cases. We'll say multiple allegations of sexual assault. Trevor Bauer, not talking about him being in Major League Baseball, but Deshaun Watson is currently suiting up for the Cleveland Browns. We're going to talk about Cleveland Browns, whether they have the ability to make the playoffs or maybe even win a division. So that's going to be our best bet. We're going to focus some of our analysis to that first bet. But beyond that, we're going to talk about 2 NFL bets. We're going to bring in the litigants when we come back after this. But this has been Lust for Law. I'm trying to educate you a little bit on sports in our framework of the law. We'll be back right after this, and we'll bring in the litigants.
Oh, boy, we got a big one. We got a big card here.
Let's go.
We got a super rookie.
Ooh.
Do you guys want to guess who the big card super rookie is? Because
I'm going to guess somebody from the Dallas Cowboys, but I don't recall who were rookies in those particular years. So I'm going to guess Michael Irvin.
Adam?
Jared kind of convinced me to go Troy Aikman there.
I'm going to read the description. In this player's NFL debut, September 10th, 1989, he produced an electrifying 68-yard punt return for a touchdown.
Sanders.
He became the first athlete in the 20th century to hit a home run, September 5th, 1989, for the Yankees at Seattle, and score a touchdown in the same week.
That needs a sleeve. That one needs a sleeve.
Top
100%.
super rookie, neon, prime time, Deion Sanders.
I wasn't that far off. He played for the Cowboys.
I was going to say Deion, and then when you said the early 90s Cowboys, I'm like, Aikman would be a good guess. So I go with your gut is the lesson there.
And there it is, the white and red Falcon jerseys that you said Deion came in with before they changed to black.
That was because the starting lineup for Deion his rookie year has got the red helmet with the white jersey.
Now look at that do. I mean, are you kidding me with that hair?
I mean, you got to have a headband with those curls. You got to.
That is sick. And this is a favorite card. Do we have any value on this card? We have to, right?
Let me see.
Give me a value here.
Let's see here on eBay. PSA 10 gem mint Deion Sanders, $149.99. And then a 9.5 is $6. So that guy might be a little bit. Then there's a much more reasonably listed one at $31 for a PSA 10. So it's got some value to it. Yeah, you might want to protect that one.
It's in excellent condition. I guess we have to worry about, is it centered?
Yes, that would be the next thing.
All right, well, we'll go through the process there. Maybe I'll just frame that one as a great moment in this show's history.
Sports Bettor Court is now in session. It's time for tonight's litigants. First, Jim Coventry. Jim is a fantasy football analyst for RotoWire. He also hosts on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports channel on the weekends. Follow Jim on Twitter/X at Jim Coventry. Next, Mike Fliegelman. Mike is a producer and host at WFAN in New York. Follow him on Twitter/X at mfliegelman. All rise for the Honorable Judge Dan Lust.
Welcome to the courtroom. Jim, you were about to be the judge for a second. You were going to host the show. You were sitting in my seat. Thank you for keeping it warm, though. Jim, Mike, welcome to the show. Jim, you are our first return litigant to the courtroom. I think that means you won the first time, or we just really liked you.
I'll say I don't remember.
I think you won. Okay. So, what we're going to do here, Jim, Mike, you know the rules. We generally take a best 2 out of 3 format, but I want to see your advocacy skills. That's what we're going to do here. First bet, I alluded to it. Deshaun Watson, people, maybe only the lawyers care at this point. I find it to be very weird rooting for the Cleveland Browns. Yes, me as the fantasy football guy and betting guy, I'll dabble betting on the Browns, but just rooting for them, I find it kind of odd. I picked up Amari Cooper this week in my guillotine league, but we can talk about the fun guillotine league I have offline. I'm looking at the Cleveland Browns here to win the division. It's a very feisty division. You got the Steelers, you got the Ravens, you got the Browns, you got the Bengals. I find this one to be very interesting. Jim, I'm going to go with you first. Is there a chance you're taking the Cleveland Browns here?
I think so. The Cleveland Browns, look, defense, we don't talk about it. It's today's NFL. Let's throw the ball, score 40 points, and that's a great thing. And it has won championships. But there are outlier defense from time to time. And look, Jim Schwartz last week, the defense, not his fault. They had the backup quarterback, Dorian Thompson, and he was turnover machine, gave the ball to the Ravens, a good field position. This defense is holding everybody to no yardage. And Deshaun Watson, he actually showed in week 1, terrible weather against Cleveland, wind, rain. Second week at the Steelers, pass rush lethal, I get it. But he found his way in week 3. Only 6 incomplete passes. A blown call by a referee who blew a whistle on an out-of-bound plays of Amari Cooper. Would have been over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. Watson will be back after the bye. He only has to tread water with this offense. We don't need him to be the Deshaun Watson of Houston. We just need him to be serviceable, to get the ball in decent field position. That defense, 3 elite pass rushers, 3 very good corners, linebackers healthy. Yes, the Cleveland Browns, despite a 2-2 record, will get Watson back. They're going to win 10 or 11 games, and they're going to the playoffs. And they'll win that division.
Okay, so let's hold there, Jim. And now we have the odds on the bottom. Ravens -50, Browns at +320, Bengals at +700, Steelers at +750. Mike, we got Jim taking the Browns at +320. Okay, I'm gathering you're not going to take the Browns. Where is your bet going to take you?
No, I can't do it, Your Honor. And before the season, full disclosure, I was on the Ravens, Bengals under. The Browns were a team that I liked as a playoff team.
Do you have any evidence of this? This is a courtroom. You can't just make stats like that. You have any evidence of this?
I would have to go back. I can provide it if needed.
Okay.
The Browns, and it's one thing that Jim didn't get to mention because, yes, Deshaun Watson looked better in that game against the Titans. He looked, after looking awful in the first 2 weeks. One of the reasons I like the Browns a little bit preseason, yes, the defense and the offensive line and Amari Cooper, that they could kind of tread water, like Jim said, making the playoffs until Watson maybe got going. But the biggest reason for all of that is gone. They had one of the best, and somehow, even after years of performing at a high level, most underrated running backs in the NFL in Nick Chubb. When he was not just part of this offense, but the focal point of this offense, I could have believed in the Cleveland Browns. Now that he's gone and he's out for the year, Jerome Ford looked nice in that game against the Steelers, come back to earth a little bit since. I can't buy into the Browns the same way. And knowing that they're facing for the division such stiff competition, this is a Ravens team that the last few years had the division in their grasp if Lamar Jackson did not get hurt. So if I'm going to roll with the assumption that we're not going to see another season-ending injury for Lamar Jackson, how can I bet on the Browns and not go with the Ravens with Nick Chubb already done for the season?
Okay, so let's pause here, and I'm happy sometimes we don't plan this, right? Jim, who did the Browns play last week?
Without Deshaun Watson, they did play the Ravens.
They played the Ravens. Okay, the Ravens scoring 28 points. Did that have anything to do with Deshaun Watson not playing?
No, they got short. Well, they got short fields because of the backup quarterback. There were turnovers, and they got the ball in plus position. They didn't even have 200 passing yards, 180 passing yards. I think they were held under 300 total yards in the game. They didn't move the ball. It's just that they had short fields because the quarterback was out.
That is fair. That is fair. But you did know why I brought it up. I think going into this week, the Browns had historic defensive numbers. And to be fair, 186 yards to the air is not that much. And Gus Edwards led the team in rushing with 48, and Justice Hill had like 33. I think they
Very
probably
little.
got to 100 yards total. Yeah, just I think $130 total. So I don't know, running back by committee notwithstanding. Is it possible that we are seeing, right, the Ravens versus the Browns? If the Browns are going to win the division, they've got to beat the Ravens, right? They got to beat them maybe next time, maybe in Baltimore. But Jim, to that point, doesn't this show that maybe the Browns have a good defense, but the Ravens are just a better team?
Again, I think there are games you have to throw out when you're going with a backup quarterback. In the NFL, good luck winning with a backup quarterback, especially when you're playing a good team. It's just in the NFL playoffs. Brock Purdy's out. Well, guess what? You're not winning. So it's just the lay of the landscape. But Watson proved it was a speed of the game thing he lost last year. And when you're off for that much time, reclaiming is difficult. We saw that come back in week 3. The shoulder injury, they said, is very manageable. We got to throw out the game with a backup quarterback. It's just like saying if Lamar Jackson didn't play, well, Cleveland wins that game 28-3. It's that simple. And Jackson's missed 5+ games in the last 2 years.
Okay, Mike, let's come back to you. So this will probably answer the question. Dorian Thompson-Robinson comes in, right? Throws for $120 with 3 picks. Deshaun Watson's been bad. He hasn't been $120 with 3 picks bad. If you think if Deshaun Watson plays in this game, do you think the Ravens still win by I don't know, this is a 25-point margin. What do you think the score is with the healthy Deshaun Watson?
It's a lot closer. And I'll even give Jim that.
Of course it's a lot closer. I'm looking for a score, Mike.
Maybe within a score. Either way.
Okay.
And these teams might be closer, but when we're talking about winning a division, you have to beat out the other team. So we now have, maybe it's just circumstances that the Ravens already have a head-to-head win against the Browns. They already have that extra division win in the 6 games where you're going up against your divisional opponents, where they now have one in the win column. The Browns have one in the loss column. So all that did, even if I wanted to throw out the game without Watson and say, well, the Browns will be better, obviously, when he's on the field, that's already something that is working against them because they could, come out and play better down the stretch. They end up in a tie with the Ravens. Well, the Ravens win the division because of that game. It doesn't matter anymore that Deshaun Watson wasn't part of it, and we had to watch Dorian Thompson-Robinson not clearly not be ready for prime time in the NFL yet.
Okay, I'm ready to render my verdict on this first one. This has nothing to do with my thoughts independently on Deshaun Watson. I just, watching the Ravens, I'm looking at the box score from last week. The Ravens look awfully, other than the exception of J.K. Dobbins at first week, look awfully healthy, right? And it's all about being healthy, right? We lose Nick Chubb if you're the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson's got some ailing injuries. Let's see Watson come back. But right now, minus 150, you're getting the Ravens at basically even money. A little bit of juice. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I like that bet for the division. The Browns are game back. They did not look good in Cleveland. Bengals, I don't know what's happened with Joey Burrow. Minus 150 seems pretty enticing at this point. So, Mike, we're going to give you round 1 as we head into round 2. Before we do that, Fantasy Alarms All-Pro subscription. Start a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarms All-Pro subscription and get DFS content and NFL picks for week 5. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Okay, we're sticking with some futures here. I'm a little bit intrigued by this one. It started the year, and I always give you my full disclosures for the AFC South. The judge here, listen, Mike, you can't ask me for receipts. I can ask you for receipts and evidence, but you're just going to have to trust me in this one. I took the Tennessee Titans to win that division, and I felt pretty good about it. Felt pretty good about Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill, Treylon Burks. I don't know if I feel as good anymore, especially because the Texans look very competent, surprisingly competent. So I'm curious about these odds. This is for my own betting purposes, so I can sleep well at night. I have a lot of money riding on the Titans, so we'll see if the Texans are for real or not, and I'll leave it to you guys. Houston Texans to make the playoffs. The odds I'm seeing via FanDuel right now, Texans to make it plus 225, not to make it minus 290. Jim, we started with you last time. Mike, let you have first shot at this.
All right, well, the Texans, we know it's a team with a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach. You don't always know what you're going to get going in, but through the first 4 weeks on the whole, I've been impressed with what I've seen from the Texans. Obviously, the last 2 weeks, they didn't just go to Jacksonville and beat the Jaguars. they kicked their behinds. Then they played the Steelers at home, and they throttled them too. Those were pretty encouraging signs to me. And this is an AFC that before the season we talked about how loaded it was, how much better the AFC was than the NFC. And I still think that could be true to a point, but you look at the AFC teams that have already taken hits. The Jets, and I'm a Jets fan, at MetLife Stadium when they lose Aaron Rodgers 4 plays into the season, and I almost feel like I want to cry. The Browns have lost Nick Chubb. The Bengals look like they're not even close to the same team that they used to be. So when you think about sneaking into the playoffs, and I'm not talking division here, this is just playoffs, looking at the Texans and how they've played the last couple of weeks, CJ Stroud is the real deal, and it looks like he might be. They have young receivers. They have a defense that's not great, but is solid. They have a veteran tight end in Dalton Schultz. Dameon Pierce was a running back that people fell in love with last year. As a rookie.
I got it, Mike. You like the Texans.
The biggest key, their schedule. When we talk about the AFC, the Chiefs.
I got you. I follow you. I think the bet that I'm actually listening. The odds are plus 225. I'm thinking the Texans are a little bit dangerous. Plus 225 seems interesting. So Jim, let me go to you here. I'm going to sum up Mike's argument for you. You ready for this?
Yes.
Great quarterback, shit schedule, shit division. Mike, did I sum that up appropriately?
Good quarterback. You're right about the division and schedule.
And a double dose of shit. Okay, between the schedule and division. Jim, the no here is minus 290. And the reason we put this bet on the board, I was a little bit surprised to see the no is minus 290. I mean, we're 4 weeks through the season. They beat Jacksonville, supposed to be a playoff team, and they throttled Pittsburgh, that was supposed to be a 9-win team. So, Jim, I gather you have the no here. So, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Pittsburgh's a mess. And Mike Tomlin, that doesn't happen, but we've seen it. They do not look good. Their offense is dysfunctional. The Jaguars were in a funk. They haven't come out. So eventually, here's what happens to the Texans. Film comes out. And CJ Stroud's going to be a really nice quarterback. But once film comes out, that offensive line is a mess. They're dealing with injuries. A lot of these guys may not even come back, but if they do, it's still not a great line. And eventually, film comes out. And defensively, it's a little smoke and mirrors going on, a little motivation, the head coach getting them fired up. At some point, the lack of overall high-end talent is going to be a bit of a problem, especially the linebacker and defensive line in the middle. This is a team that has a lot of holes. Film comes out, teams figure them out. They definitely float back to the pack. They'll maybe win 500. They might get to 500. That won't make it in the AFC.
That's fair. Mike, what do you say to that? And what do you say? I thought you were about to say that CJ Stroud was a great quarterback. CJ Stroud looks like I think Bijan still has the rookie of the year odds, but CJ Stroud's probably right there. But Mike, isn't that your guy? Isn't that the guy that's going to take you to the promised land here?
Well, listen, he has all the tools to be a great quarterback, and if he puts it together, it makes my bet for them to make the playoffs feel like I'm getting even better value. But looking at not just their schedule, but how the AFC stacks up, some teams that have already come down a little bit. They don't have to play the Dolphins. They don't have to play the Bills. They get the 4 NFC South teams all in a row coming up. They have the Bengals after that. Who knows what's going on with Joe Burrow and his calf by then? They look like a mess anyway. The Cardinals, they have the Broncos at home. They go to the Jets, and they play weaker competition. I look at some past teams that have made the playoffs. I don't think the Texans are better than a lot of the teams that I'm picking them to make the playoffs over, but they're better positioned to make the playoffs. If they can get to 9 wins, 10 wins against this softer schedule, a team like the Giants did last year where they didn't have the talent. Jim's right. It came out in the postseason in this year, and now teams are smacking them and laughing as they're doing it. But when you have that weaker schedule, we see it all the time in the NFL. There's that one team that probably doesn't deserve to be there, but they find their way in, and then they're in that 4:30 slot on Saturday afternoon, which used to be the Houston Texans Invitational, and we're watching them get smacked around in that first wild card game.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to come back to you for this, but I have an update. The current rookie of the year odds, as we sit here right now, I was actually wrong. CJ Stroud is the favorite at plus 175, followed by Bijan at plus 350. A little bit of Puka.
I love that quarterback bias.
HM. Well, plus 175 to win the rookie of the year. That's the books telling you that they think CJ Stroud's legit. And Bijan had the lead in this a while, and I think Richardson was kind of up there, but neither here nor there. You have a plus 175 favorite to win the rookie of the year. You have a bad division. The AFC South always emerges with some terrible team. Now, we've already played, right? If you're the Texans, you've already played Jacksonville. You beat them. You lost to the Colts. Okay. You don't play Tennessee until week 15, and you play them again week 17. It's very odd schedule, but we're here. That week 15 Tennessee, week 17 Tennessee, and week 18 you go back to the Colts in Indy for the finale. So Jim, I see a path to Mike's point. There is a path to do this. I guess this is a question about the odds. I mean, I sense that you feel confident. Plus 290 this is a no-brainer bet. Do you really think that this is a plus 90? You feel that confident there was no chance the Texans make the playoffs despite having the probable rookie of the year?
Hey, any team has a chance. And those odds, man, Vegas wants you to take that bet. They're riding the hot hand right now. They see it. The public's on them. Hey, CJ Stroud's blowing up 300 yards per game in over the course of 3 weeks. They want people to bet that. They know what eventually will happen. And Bijan Robinson, little bit of a lull right now. Obviously, we see what he's got as a runner and receiver. Back to our point and the main point about the Texans. Like I said, they're a fun team. They're a nice team to watch, and they're going to be good. It's going to take time. I said it earlier. The film comes out. You find weaknesses to attack. They get attacked, and teams that have inferior talent end up not making it. I get it. The schedule is easy. The Jaguars are figuring things out. They get their left tackle franchise guy back this week. Makes a big difference in their passing game. The Jaguars are highly talented, and they will end up winning the division, and that's going to keep the Texans out.
Okay. I'm ready to render my verdict here. I don't love the juice I'm paying, but I do feel pretty confident, Jim, that you're right here. I feel like we're being lulled into this plus 225, lulled into this plus 175. These are the fishy bets that don't really make sense. But in my auction draft, I did not take CJ Stroud. We don't have to talk about the terrible quarterback I took for the same exact price, but we're here. Jim, I'm going to give you round 2 as we head into the rubber match, which is round 3. When we come back.
Talk about how just John Carlson has fallen off the face of the earth here, and like nobody's batting an eye, but yet this is a player who can easily top 60 points when healthy. We understand the Capitals are a bad team, but he's on the power play with Alexander Ovechkin. And considering the injuries with Nick Backstrom in his hips and Evgeny Kuznetsov and whatever, like he's still good. And I think people forget that just because he was hurt for so long last year. But this is a player who can produce and just feed Ovi the puck in his office and collect. Again, he's not going to block a whole bunch of shots, and that's fine. And he's probably not going to shoot the puck a ton just because there's so many good shooters on it. You also add Max Pacioretty to that lineup, and you probably take off some shots. But the Capitals are not going to be a very good team. They're going to be playing a lot of catch-up hockey, and he's going to be on the ice. He's going to be there a lot. The only player who could take something away from him is Rasmus Sandin. Yes, Sandin. He's the only player I think who can really maybe dig in a little bit to his ice time or a little bit into his offensive production. But again, that's a slight risk. If I'm getting Carlson outside of that top 10 of defensemen that we just named, I'm happy. I should have never mentioned it. Everybody can just not listen to what I just said. Just forget it, right? Men in Black.
We'll edit this out in post. We'll get rid
correct,
of this
and just leave it as a secret because that's where I would go.
This wasn't a Max Pacioretty injury where he's messed up his knees and all. Like he got hit in the face.
Yeah.
Right. That was the injury, and he came back and he still scored points. So, I mean, this is a good
Washington's D-core as of right now. Right, Nick Jensen, Trevor Riemsdyk, Martin Ferravari, Joel Edmondson. Rasmus Sandin. So like there's not many people that are going to be digging into his ice time offensively, right? Correct. They got a lot of guys who are just going to play defense, protect and whatnot. So Carlson could be that guy who's just going to be out there a lot when they are trailing because they need a goal or something, and maybe he bumps to 24-25 minutes a night. Nice sleepwalk.
Well, if you're not in any of our leagues, make sure you keep an eye on him. If you're in our league, stay away.
He's gone.
Keep in mind too that the Capitals have said that they're, as long as Ovechkin is still playing, they are not gonna go into rebuild mode, which means they're gonna play these guys like Carlson and Ovechkin, and they're playing them into the ground. It's all set up for him to get a ton of playing time anyway. And at least this year, especially because he missed half a season last year, if they're gonna run him out there in an Erik Karlsson San Jose fashion like last year, this is gonna be the year they do it.
All rise for Sports Bettor Court with Dan Lust on Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Bettor Court. It is the rubber match. It is time. So we're doing something new this week. Normally we pick a line and we tell you to take one team or the other team. This week we did it a little more fun. We just tell you guys best bets. Tell us which line you like the best. So I know this is not technically the best bet, but this is, I think, the most fair bet. You go across the board and pick whatever you want. Okay. Jim, you won the last round. You are experienced, grizzled veteran in the Sports Bettor Court. You survived. You lived to tell the truth about it. Where does your best bet take you for the NFL Week 5 season?
Oh, my goodness. It takes me to Miami. We're going to Miami, like Will Smith style. Look, first of all, it's going to be 86 degrees there. Guess what Miami does to their road guests? They put them on the sunny side of the field in the humidity. They let them fry. The Giants are on a short week. Now, defensively, first of all, we have Miami coming off of an embarrassing loss. Well, one thing that the Giants don't have, they don't have good linebacker play. They don't have very good corner play. We got Tyreek Hill. We got Jalen Waddle. And we have a defense that can't disrupt their timing like the Bills did last week. Tua probably puts 40 points up on the board. And guess what? Daniel Jones gets to face Vic Fangio's defense, who changes all the looks at the snap of the football. Daniel Jones is not going to know where to go. And who the heck is he throwing the ball to? It ain't Darren Waller. Look, Miami laying 11. Don't overthink this one. They're going to win this by 21 or more.
Jim, before we go back to Mike, just a quick question. You ready for this?
Yes.
How many points are the Miami Dolphins averaging in their home games?
Well, they scored a 70 spot, so it's got to be about 50.
It's 70. They've only played one home game.
Gotcha.
Only played one home game.
Gotcha.
That's a pretty good home game average. Helping you out on that one. Okay, Mike, where does your best bet take you? I don't need you to respond to Jim's yet. Where does your best bet take you?
I'm going to another big home favorite, not as big. That's the Lions right now, minus the 9.5 over the Carolina Panthers. The Lions are a team that I think is starting to click. They had the weird game week 2 against the Seahawks, but even then, it was the defense that struggled much more than the offense. We know this team can score points in bunches. We know they score a ton at home. And then the Panthers with Bryce Young, another really talented quarterback, rookie quarterback, hasn't shown me a ton yet. They haven't cracked 20 points in any of the games he started. The only time they topped 20 was when Andy Dalton played in Seattle a couple of weeks ago. I just think this is a bad spot for the Panthers. I think the Lions are going to look to roll them here. I think they're going to try to have the one play where Jameson Williams blows somebody on Carolina over the top for a big touchdown. I love the Lions in this spot because I don't think the Carolina Panthers right now can hang with most teams on the road. Certainly not this Lions offense.
So sometimes I do some square things and I take some big home favorites. I tease them down. I find a 7-point teaser, a 10-point teaser. So both of these games that you picked are in my Judge Lust zone of losing teasers because I always find one leg that loses. It's a matter of figuring out which one. Okay, so Jim, 70 points, the Miami Dolphins, the only time they've had a home game. They're playing the New York Giants. So maybe you guys don't know this. I used to work for the New York Giants once upon a time, maybe sometimes a little bit impartial to the Giants. Giants cost me some money on Monday night. That was a putrid performance. Are you not worried about the Giants at all? I think that's the question here. I think we know Miami's going to score. You're not worried about the Giants?
Left tackle Andrew Thomas is out again, and he is their only good lineman. I mean, Vic Fangio is going to eat him up. They're going to rush forward. They're going to disguise the rush, and they're going to have a blanket like zone coverage switching looks. Yeah, Daniel Jones has no chance. And here's the key: Miami is coming off a loss. If they were coming off a win, it would be one of those letdown spots. They have to win. They know winning the division is huge, and every win means something. They will be amped up for this game.
Okay, so Mike, now if you heard what Jim just said, and this is me a little bit, right? The Giants are not that good. They got their own issues, right? But they still might be a little bit higher than the Panthers. And you have the Miami Dolphins returning home. The only other time they've scored 70 points, they're angry, right? You've upset the, I guess they're not the angry tiger, but they're an angry dolphin. They're coming back home. They need to prove it, right? The Bills made them look pretty bad. That 70 number, they're not going to score 70, but they've showed that they want to make a statement win, maybe similar to how Colorado University, the Buffaloes got put in line by Oregon not so long ago. I'm sensing that that's a very possible outcome here. Now, if you look at the Lions, I'm just looking at their wins so far. They beat Kansas City, a depleted Kansas City squad by a point. They took Seattle to overtime at home. They won by 6 points. They beat Atlanta by 2 touchdowns. That's fair. And they beat the Packers this past week on Thursday night in Green Bay by 2 touchdowns. But they are not a blowout team. It's a 9.5-point spread. And I'm not really sensing that, the Lions at home are making some type of statement. They just made their statement last week. So I guess I'll turn to you here. Maybe they do score points at home. I'm seeing 21, 37, 20, 34. I don't know. Carolina, they could be a little frisky here. You don't think the Cats can hang with them?
No, I don't see it for two reasons. One, anti-Panthers, one, pro-Lions. The one thing I like about the Lions, on top of they're able to score points on offense, they have a rest advantage coming into this game. They played Thursday against the Packers. They get a couple extra days off. Might be a little fresher. And the Panthers said it in their earlier statement. They have not cracked 20 points yet with Bryce Young. This Lions defense isn't great, but they can turn the ball over at times. Bryce Young, rookie quarterback. I just think this is a very bad spot for the Panthers. And if I'm looking at a 31-17 game, Lions don't have to put up 45 for me to cover that 9.5.
Panthers can be frisky. They can be frisky.
With Andy Dalton.
With Andy Dalton, but last week they only lost by 8 to the lowly Minnesota Vikings. But I don't know. They've been in games before. Okay, I'm ready to render my verdict here. I am a Bills fan. The Bills might be the best team in football, and that's the only team that can make the Miami Dolphins look that bad at this point. A 70 burger last time they were in, and they played the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos, New York Giants, probably right around the same tier. I'm going to go with Jim for my best bet. I think if me as the casual bettor, you guys are the sharps here. I'm the casual bettor, right? But I tell you which one I would invest my money in. I think there's a world where that game, that the Dolphins game, is a 30-point game. I'm not sensing that the Lions have the firepower, the aerial attack, notwithstanding the return of Jamison Williams. I don't sense that they're going to run it up on teams. I don't sense that. But the Dolphins, I think they're motivated to. Jim, I'm going to go with you for round 3, and that'll give you the game and the match. Jim, excellent job here. Mike, fantastic job. I thought you guys were both excellent. You guys know where to find them. If they're bets, the Texans making the playoffs, if that fails, you know who to blame. If you lose this weekend, you know who to blame. But that has been Sports Bettor Court. And Jim, Mike, fantastic job, both of you. And that'll do it for us over here. We will see you next time, Wednesday, 6 p.m. on the Sports Bettor Court.
Sports Bettor Court is now in recess. Join us next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m., where we weigh the odds and settle the score with the Honorable Judge Dan Lust.